Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's Wendy here from Toonpish Crafts and I hope you're doing okay. Now, I asked Let's Resin recently if they made flexible resin. I think the communication was a little bit off because they said, yes, we do, and they sent me some flexible rubber. Okay, not quite what I had in mind, but I've got to see what this does. So this is the box of flex rubber from Let's Resin. It's a mix of 1-to-1 ratio by weight. Mixing time is 3 to 5 minutes. Working time is 30 minutes at room temperature. Curing time is 3 to 4 hours, or longer depending on the size, the thickness and the temperature. It also says that the working environment should be clean, not moist, but dry, and in a non-smoking environment. Nowhere near cooking fumes. I was really surprised how many things came in this box. You get flocking powder. Now, flocking powder goes onto something sticky and it gives it a fluffy feel. And they've given you quite a lot of colours too. You get some stirring sticks, a couple of mixing cups, which are always handy, some bags to put your finished pieces in, a really sweet cat paw mould, some more flocking powder, a plastic box for putting your flocking powder in, some more flocking powder, yes, it's purple, and the actual flex rubber as well. Don't forget, I do have a discount code for Let's Resin that will be in the description box below, and 10% is always worth having, isn't it? And of course you get the bog standard directions, which I am making use of, to be honest, because I've never used anything like this before. Now, I did notice that the mould has 2 shiny pieces and 2 matte pieces, and I didn't know why there would be 2 matte and 2 shiny, but we're going to use both and we're going to see if there's any difference. So I'm pouring out 20 ml of part A and 20 ml of part B, trying to get it as close to the 20 as possible. I do tend to measure out as accurately as I can with any silicone that I use. I think it's a good practice to have because I don't know the variable tolerances. And I'm giving it a good stir for 3 to 5 minutes. Now, I did actually stir for about 3.5 minutes, although I won't show that all on here. It can get a little tedious. I only stirred very gently. And I'm just going to pour the plain undyed flux rubber into 2 of the moulds. One is shiny, as I said, and one is matte. I am interested to see if there's any difference. And 20 ml just about did the 2. So each pour is 10 ml. If you ever get this mould, now you know. So I don't want to waste any, and I pour as much out of the cup as I can and I leave it to cure. So this was about 5 hours later. I was engrossed in something else and I came back suddenly thinking, oh, I can demould now. This is so weird. Now, this is the weird part. It is really sticky, really tacky, very odd. It came away from the mould absolutely fine. I was just very nervous about pulling and pushing it, and it is stuck to my gloves all the time. Very, very odd indeed. I was not prepared for it to be so sticky. But it comes off of the mould okay, and it's not damaged at all, even though I'm pulling at it to get it off of the mould. That was speeded up, mind you. And even though it felt in my hands as if it was distorting and not going to come out completely whole, it was absolutely fine. Now, of course, I had to try the purple powder first. I poured some of the flocking powder into the clear box, and I'm just literally covering this silicone piece with the flocking powder, which sticks to it obviously because it's a very sticky thing, before it's flocked. And I'm really paying attention to my pronunciation. There are little places that I'm finding as I pull it around, just to make sure it's all covered between the pour parts, to make sure they're covered as well. Very weird consistency for me though, to be honest. Not used to it being so sticky and so squeezy. But I guess that's what it's there for. It's there to be squeezed and squished and mushed and pulled and pushed. And yeah, it's a stress toy. Once I've completely covered it in the flocking, I'm putting it into the plastic bag which comes with the pack. And I'm sealing it up. They're designed for you to be able to send them out to people. And once I put it in the bag, I realised that I couldn't actually film anything else with it because it was in a sealed bag. But I might take it out of the bag to film something later. Now, I did decide with this one to put some flocking on the back of the paw before I tried to get it out of the mould because it does stick to your gloves. I did realise at this point I was being too gentle, really. You couldn't be a little bit more heavy-handed than I have been. So with this one, I'm just basically popping it out. Didn't take much at all. I mean, in my brain, it was telling me I haven't done this right because it's soft and squishy, because I'm so used to wanting resin to be hard and not soft and squishy. And again, covering it with the flocking powder. And I had to choose purple, didn't I? I mean, why wouldn't I? Making sure it goes in every little place so there's no stickiness at all left. And basically it's just, from what I can feel, this flocking powder is just basically dusty cardboard. And dusty cardboard as it is, it feels like shredded paper. I mean, I don't actually know what it's made of, but from how it feels in your hand and in the packet, it definitely feels like shredded powder, like a paper powder. That's how it feels. There's no smell to it, and it doesn't fly away too much either. It's definitely not static. I don't think there's any difference between the two. They just look the same. So I thought I'd take my gloves off and show you that it doesn't come off on your hands at all. It's just a squishy stress toy. Goes back into shape all the time. You can squeeze it a lot and it doesn't go out of shape. It just pops back into shape. It doesn't come off in your hands. There's absolutely no negative effects with this at all. I suppose if you was allergic to silicone, then maybe this would not be for you. And both the paws look exactly the same, even though one was a matte mould and one was a glossy mould. They're going to get covered in flock, so there's absolutely no difference whatsoever. Aren't they sweet? Absolutely adorable. So I thought, I need to try a different type of mould. So I went rummaging through my mould boxes and I found some Let's Resin animal moulds that came in a pack, and I thought I'll choose the lion and the wolf. And I found a skull mould. Now, I think this was a cheap one for Amazon. I can't actually remember where that came from, but I thought it was the right sort of size for a stress ball. So I made some more flex rubber. This time I'm pouring out about 110 ml of part A and 110 of part B. I'm making sure I get both parts as close to each other as possible, because I don't know this product and I don't know how much tolerance there is in the measurements. So I'm doing my best to get it right. I give it a good stir for 3.5, 4 minutes, very gently. I didn't use a whisk. And I'm going to use some Let's Resin micas to colour these. So I've got white, sky blue, and I believe that's peach, although you can't actually see the name of this on here, but these all come from the 36 set of Let's Resin colours. And I'm just putting a bit of the colour in the bottom of these mixing cups, and I'm going to try and colour this flex rubber to go with the flock. And I thought that might be a better idea than leaving it clear, because you'll see the colour through the colour, if you see what I mean. Or if there's any parts that look a little white, they won't, because they'll have colour on them. Does that make sense to you? It was an experiment. I didn't know if you colour it. I'm presuming you could, because Let's Resin silicone you can colour as well with mica powder. And the white, I know it's white anyway, but I thought it would be nice to have a more solid white. Now I'm eking the measurements out here. I know the skull is going to take more of the flex rubber, and I'm pretty sure I've got the measurements right for the wolf and the lion, because I measured them with water, so I know how much flex rubber I had to make for those. With the skull, I think I measured it with water, so I got a rough idea of how much I needed. So if you do fill up a mould with water and empty it out, that volume will be the amount of volume you need for either resin or silicone. But make sure the mould is completely dry before you use it, and dry it with a lint-free cloth. And I stirred them up to get these beautiful colours. Aren't these colours so bright? That sky blue is adorable, and so is the peach. Absolutely gorgeous. I always go for blues and pinks if I'm not going for purple. I don't know why, that's just me. Actually, it kind of reminds me of red, white and blue, and I've done that combination before as well. Go figure, it's not intentional. I don't know whether this flex rubber will stick to these moulds. I haven't put anything in them to stop them sticking. I've just gone for it. Now I know these moulds are sweet and they are Let's Resin, so I figured why not try. So I'm pouring the coloured flex rubber into these moulds without any other preparation, and just trying to make sure there's no little pockets of holes in there of air. Because you certainly don't want holes when you're flocking, do you? I mean, there can't be anything worse than trying to flock in a hole. I can imagine that would be a nightmare. And I'm a flocking novice. I don't want to have to try that. Now with the skull, it's a different type of silicone, and again, I have no clue whether this is going to stick, but I wanted to try it out. I like skulls, and I figured a stress toy with a skull shape would be really quite cool. And as skulls are white or grey, I figured I'd go with the white flocking. So that's why I've coloured it with white mica. Again, I'm trying to make sure there's no air pockets left in there, because the last thing I want is a hole in the skull, a bubble in my noggin. That's not what I want. I was thinking, you know, with this stress toy, wouldn't it be good to imagine your boss, to be sitting there squishing your stress toy, thinking it was your boss. I just think that's really, really apt. Sorry, I've got the giggles now. I'm such a child. And I've got a little bit of an overspill there, but the cotton buds will sort that out. Now I have a tiny, tiny bit of the flex rubber left. So on the last bit, I thought I would try to add two colours together. We have a little bit of pink, a little bit of blue left, but no white. I think I managed to get that one spot on. So I'm going to put a little bit of the pink in the paw pads and a little bit of the blue in the rest. And hopefully there will be enough to at least fill the mould up halfway. I just wanted you to see how it would cope with it, what would happen, how it would blend. So as much pink as I could possibly get out of that mixing jar went in. And then the little bit of blue that I had left over, I put the rest of that on top. And it nearly went to the top of the mould, but not quite. So I got some scrapings from the pink and put that on the top too. And the following day, I went to bed, so obviously it was the following day. I could take it out. Now, I was thinking at one point that this isn't coming out of this mould, but I did the flocking on the top again to stop it being so sticky to my gloves. It does help when demoulding, is to get that flock on before you try to. It's like putting icing sugar on a piece of icing. You can manoeuvre it easier because it's not sticking to you. It came away from the mould really easily, just as it did from the pour moulds. So I'm guessing the silicones work really well together. I did wonder how easy it would be to pull out the ears and the nose, whether they would get stuck in and rip. But this stuff has a lot of give to it. I mean, I'm really pulling that, and you can see that I'm just pulling it and easing it away from the mould, and it works really well. Even the nose come away. I put it straight into the pink flocking, which I had to one side ready, and I wished him around. And like I said, it's just like putting icing sugar on some icing. There was a little bit behind his ear that I had to get. I think the colour of the silicone really worked well with the colour of the flocking. It doesn't look so clear and it doesn't have any patchy bits to it at all. I don't think this filming does it justice really. It is really pink. And I'll try and put some images up at the end of all of them together so that you can see how cute they all look. They really do look cute. Now I'm going to try the skull. And again, I'm going to put the flocking on the top so that I don't get it sticking to my gloves so much. Now, I don't see why you can't do this with bare hands, but I figured I would use gloves in case I put a fingerprint in it. I don't think I could, but you never know. So does it come away from the mould? I was a little concerned to start with, but then once I got a little peel away, yeah, it came away from the mould really easily. It's quite odd. It's an odd thing to play around with. It's like nothing I've used before. Absolutely weird stuff. And I guess for those that make stress toys, they would know that. But I didn't. This whole experience has been really quite weird. From getting something I wasn't expecting in the post to making something I wasn't expecting to make. And the feel of it is really bizarre. Absolutely out there. Now it did stretch a little bit round the bottom, but I'm guessing that silicone shrinks back like anything when it's curing. But I'm happy with that. I really am. But I think it's really cool. A skull stress toy. And it's very squishy and wobbly. And now for the wolf. Again, I was worried about the ears and the nose because they are quite small and sticky outy. I decided again to put the flocking on the back. It just makes it easier for me. Once I'm happy that the back is covered. Now I did think, will these ears rip? But they sprung out, absolutely sprung out of the mould without any worries at all. And even the nose, trying to pull him out with his nose, he got a bit elongated and I was thinking, is this going to come off? But no, his nose just popped out. And he was 100% fine. I must admit, this was a lot of fun. It is certainly not the norm for me. I don't usually make stress toys. I'm sure there's people out there that do make quite a lot of them. But I'm not one of them. And I've never made silly putty or anything like that. It was just so weird. But it was so much fun. And doing the voiceover of this video had me in giggles so many times. I'm such a child. And they're really squishy. They really are squishy. He is a perfectly formed wolf. Now as for the two-tone paw, I did think afterwards maybe I should have let one colour cure before I put the other in, but I was just using up the silicone rubber that I had already made. I wasn't making this for any particular reason. I just was using up what I had and I wanted to see if the two colours would work together. I used the glossy mould for this one. Not that it makes a blind bit of difference. It would for resin, but not for this because you're going to cover it in flocking anyway. There are a couple of little bits that are sticking up at the top. So I decided to use tweezers to get the paws pink. I thought that was the best way than trying to put the whole thing in and get the pink everywhere. I mean, it doesn't have to be precise. It was just something I was trying anyway. And I put a little pink in the heart as well. And then the rest was blue. Now I did start using the tweezers to start with and I thought, why am I bothering? The pink is not going to pick up any blue because it's already got pink on it. Once it's already flocked, it won't pick up any more flocking. And I thought that was really quite cute. A pink and blue paw. Now there was a bit sticking up at the top which I decided to cut off with a pair of scissors just because it was left over. Because I didn't fill the mould up completely. It must have been a little bit that was just from the top of the mould that didn't get filled up, if you see what I mean. And I really like that. I think it's quite sweet. Again, there was a little bit of a flap that didn't get any flocking, so I made sure that that was flocked as well. And I'm happy with that. Now, obviously, this is for an adult stress toy. It's not meant to be around children and it's not meant to be around pets. So I would suggest if you do make these, if you sell them, you put a little warning to that effect, but it's definitely fun. If you've come this far, maybe you're enjoying my content, and if you do, perhaps you would push the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything and it will help my channel out immensely. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this one. It's definitely been different and a lot of fun for me, and I hope it was a lot of fun for you. Come back and see me next week, because you never know what I'm going to be up to. I never know what I'm going to be up to. Have a great week. Happy grafting, and bye for now.